Good morning. Happy second week of virtual school. Hope you enjoyed the weekend. If you have not done your discussion post yet, pause. Go do that right now. It's due by 8:35, and that's how I'm marking attendance. If you're here, it's because you did the discussion post. Good morning. Welcome to class. Nice job being on time. You're going to need 3 things for class today: your notebook, your reading and writing handbook, and a pen and pencil. If you need to pause the video right now to go and get those things, please do. I'll be waiting. A few updates now that we're all set up with our materials, which again, the notebook, the handbook, something to write with. Since I'm your first period of the day, it seems important that I tell you all these things. A lot of students reached out, not just to me, but to all of the teachers over the weekend. And that just says a lot about the great community that we have and how everyone's working to figure out what this virtual platform should look like. One of the things that came up was that Schoology is just not the same every period, and it's hard to know what to do in what order. So one of the things that's going to happen is every single Schoology folder will have an attendance assignment labeled attendance that also has a set timeline to be done. So you saw that today in the discussion post for English. For English, every day moving forward, it will be a discussion post. Sometimes it'll just be a silly question so we can build community and kind of feel like we're together as if it's talking during the hallway. Sometimes it'll be based on what we did the day before to prime the pump and get us thinking. But overall, this is just how we're checking who's here and who's here on time, ready to go. So please make sure you always log in and get that discussion post done. The next thing that'll happen is there will be 2 participation/completion grades a week. This will look different in all of your classes, but this means that like 2 of your grades are either like you did it or you didn't, and that'll appear at Power School starting on Tuesday. And then there will be 1 or 2 mastery grades with quizzes coming soon. Woo! So make sure you're doing your best and that you read the digital workflow so you know exactly how things are being graded. The other thing that's going to start happening more unanimously across the board is Zoom. We miss being together. We miss seeing and talking to each other and just like getting to be a community. So we're going to use Zoom. Today, Zoom is very much optional. So if you want to come in after this lecture and you have some questions, feel free to pop in, say hello, make sure it works. Tomorrow, Zoom is mandatory. You need to be in or I won't be grading what you do because we need to be working all together. When you come in, make sure your video is on so it looks like we're all paying attention, just like we sit up and track in class. Chat only comes to me, so if you have a question, just go ahead and type it in the chat. I'll see it and I can propose it to the class, and then I'll mute everyone upon entry. If you want to talk, you can just unmute yourself and say something, but everyone's muted because, life's happening around us all the time. We'll use Zoom every day for class seminars, and we will also use it for office hours in case you want to pop in and ask a question. You'll notice your advisory is also using Zoom because, again, we're really just trying to build community since we are all so physically isolated. Schoology streamlined, just so we're on the same page of how this is going to look. First, when you come in, I'll have the attendance, and then I have this new page called the Digital Workflow Class Video and Zoom Links. It's over here on the right in a snapshot. There were too many links, I was told, and it's just too much button clicking and too many things. This one page has everything that you need, and I'll update it frequently. I really want to highlight that Ms. Gifford's guides are at the bottom, and they are linked. Everyone should be using these. Remember, in the virtual school, there's no revision, there's no makeup work, there's no late work. Your grade is your grade. Ms. Gifford's taking the time to put these things together to make sure everyone is successful. And so if you don't like the grades you've been getting on exit tickets and classwork, you should go read these videos because they're really good and they're really helpful. And you can just rewatch them until you master the content. With that being said, there's the exit ticket for today also there. It is timed. You will have 20 minutes. It is timed. You will have 20 minutes. And as per our digital workflow, I'm grading it. That's timed and you have 20 minutes, but it's based on the college lecture that we're about to do now as we introduce a new idea. So if you're ready and you have all of your things, let's get to it. We're going to talk about sonnets. And one of the most classical and important forms of poetry in the Western world is the sonnet. With its origins in the 13th century, the sonnet is widely known for its frequent use by William Shakespeare, the gentleman on the left of the screen. It is strongly associated, again, sonnets are strongly associated with romantic themes. So in this lecture, I'm going to make an argument. In this lecture, I'm going to make an argument I will argue in this lecture that poets in many different eras have been able to make use of the formal structure of the sonnet to emphasize thematic elements of their work. Pausing for effect, hoping that pens and pencils are moving for no reason in particular. It's a video, you can go back. So we're going to start here in Italy, because this is where the sonnet originated. And while Giacomo Dalentini is credited with the invention of the sonnet, it was popularized by someone known as Petrarch. So they are often called the Italian or Petrarchan sonnet. It's a love poem, and it's a legacy that's lasted, these 14-line poems that are often about love. Here's what you need to know about sonnets. 1, they're known for having a very specific form. They have 14 lines that follow a strict rhyme scheme. Sonnets have 14 lines that follow a strict rhyme scheme. Sonnets have 14 lines that follow a strict rhyme scheme, and they're usually about love or beauty or the natural world. Sonnets are usually about love, beauty, or the natural world. There's 14 lines, strict rhyme scheme, love, beauty, natural world, sonnets. Just again, thoughts to have written down. But since the sonnet was invented in Italy, we should begin there. So you can think of the Italian sonnet as having a problem-solution structure. And if you look on the screen, you see the structure all the way on the right-hand side. So an Italian sonnet, in the first part, which is the octave for 8 lines, octopus, octagon, math, algebra's next. Octave is the first stanza. It's 8 lines. In there, the poet will present a problem or a challenge that needs to be addressed. The sestet, 6 lines, 8 and 6, 14. Now is where the resolution will come. So the problem will be introduced in the octave, and the sestet is where the resolution will come. There's this very important thing that happens in the 9th line of an Italian sonnet. It's called the volta. The volta answers the problem. It's the turn. And so if someone says, like, what's the volta is the change in what's happening. So in an Italian sonnet, after the octave, where there's a problem introduced, the volta comes at the beginning of the sestet, line 9, right here. And then the rest of the sestet will answer the problem. They follow that strict rhyme scheme, because remember, there's 14 lines in a strict rhyme scheme. So if you're trying to figure out if something is an Italian sonnet, you can just see how each line ends. So the first line will be an A, second line will be a B, the third line will be a B as well. So the third and the second line will rhyme together. The first and the fourth line will rhyme together with the A, B, B, A, B, B, A structure in the octave. You can use that to immediately differentiate between Shakespearean sonnets and Italian sonnets. So again, it's just a helpful piece for you to have as you go forward. If you need to, you should pause here and make sure you have all of that in your notebook. And since it's a video, you can rewind. But do you have the argument that I'm making, for no reason in particular? Do you have the parts of the sonnet? Remember, it's like 14 lines, strict rhyme scheme, about love, beauty, the natural world. Do you have all of that? Do you have any questions that you want to ask me on Zoom, since it is an optional Zoom meeting today? And write those down, pause. I'm just going to sip some coffee while you're gone. Welcome back. So, quick summary. My argument, poets in different eras have been able to make use of the formal structure of the sonnet, just because, for no reason in particular. And the Italian sonnet structure is problem, which is in the octave, the volta, which is in line 9, but it's the shift, and then the resolution, which is in the sestet. And so we really want to focus on that. But those are only half, because like we said in the beginning, the sonnet became very popular from this guy, William Shakespeare. So here we are with the William Shakespeare or Elizabethan sonnets. This came about in the 16th century. These sonnets were all essentially inspired by the Italian sonnet tradition, and they generally speak about the poet's love for some other person. Shakespeare's sonnets are perhaps the most famous, and there's a lot of mystery surrounding them. For example, is Shakespeare one person? Is Shakespeare a collective? It's a fun conspiracy theory. If you're bored at home during quarantine, just Google "was Shakespeare one person?" Go down a rabbit hole. Anyway, we know that Shakespeare, whoever he or they were, wrote 154 sonnets. Many of them were about love, which makes sense because sonnets are often about love, beauty, and the natural world. But it's not clear who these 154 sonnets are for. In fact, it seems to change. Shakespeare's work has become so popular that his style is often called the Shakespearean sonnet. But it has a different structure than the Italian sonnet, and that's important to note. So like we talked about with the octave and the sestet in the Italian, Shakespearean sonnets actually have 3 quatrains and then the volta as a couplet. So a quatrain is 4 lines. So there are 3 stanzas of 4 lines, and you see that here. And their rhyme scheme goes A, B, A, B in quatrain 1. So stanza 1 is a quatrain, meaning there's 4 lines, and the rhyme scheme in stanza 1, the quatrain, is A, B, A, B. Stanza 2, also a quatrain, but the rhyme scheme in this one is C, D, C, D, and that's how you'll note the difference between the quatrains. Quatrain 3, which is stanza 3, E, F, E, F, and then the volta is in that final couplet, and that is a G, G. Pausing in case you got to write something down. It might be important. So, where the Italian sonnet introduces the problem and response, this is a little different. Instead of having a clean problem or resolution, the Shakespearean sonnet often describes a situation and then responds to it. And a response doesn't always mean that there's an answer or a solution. So since it's structured in the 3 quatrains, which is a 4-line stanza, and a couplet, the volta might come, it always comes in line 12, in the final couplet, and it will like give you the theme. So it will tell you what you're supposed to learn from this. It doesn't give you as clear of an answer. So if there's unrequited love, unfortunately, in Shakespearean sonnet, there's no answer to that. Sometimes it just stays unrequited. So here's an example. Because Shakespeare, the show offs, is it one person? Is it a group of people? Anyway, Shakespeare, or Shakespeare's, was such a skilled sonneteer that he actually included several sonnets in his plays, which is convenient because we're going to start reading Macbeth on Thursday. Consider how Shakespeare's sonnet in Act 1, Scene 5 of Romeo and Juliet illustrates this form. And so we have this like problem happening in these first 12 lines, and you can see the different quatrains. The first quatrain is right here with Romeo talking. The second quatrain, Juliet talks. The third quatrain, Shakespeare gets fancy and has the 2 of them talking together, but the rhyme scheme still follows. Then you have your couplet or volta at the bottom. That gives you like the theme of it all, what Romeo is arguing. And if you want some extra credit, analyze this and tell me what the theme is. What is the volta? What should I learn from this scene, from this particular sonnet? And I'll give you extra credit on today's exit ticket. And speaking of the exit ticket, you can meet me in Zoom, or you can go straight to your exit ticket. The exit ticket's at the bottom. It's graded, as this little smiley face says. I'm in Zoom if you have any questions. And then just send me that extra credit because it might help. I can't wait to see you all, and have a good rest of your day.